Hey y'all, it's your girl Jackie from Hey Jackie Beauty, and I'm looking a little different, you know? Does this ring a bell as to who I might be? Well, you guys probably already saw the title anyway. But if you haven't guessed, I am Georgina, one of my favorite characters from the movie Get Out. She was just so mysterious, but also like such a strong female character that didn't have too many lines, but her presence was felt. And so I decided to do a tutorial on her, which is a very, very simple makeup look. I mean, the main focus is honestly this little guy right here. Yeah, no, this is a pretty gnarly looking if you ask me. But anyway, yes. In this tutorial, I will not only show you how I put together this outfit and the makeup, but also the scar that is across her head. That was to show that she had had the brain transplant, yes, from the grandma. And so it's that, and also too in the car scene where she's escaping from Chris, which is when you see the scar too. In the car scene, I also saw a few clips to kind of get a good look at what her hair looks like. So I took the liberty of creating my own version of her hair at that time, since the pictures aren't that clear, so that if you don't end up using a wig or getting a wig in time, you can still do one of her hairstyles, which is the one from the car scene. And I'll show that in the tutorial too. So if you want to see how you can do all these different versions of Georgina and get a few people trapped in the sunken place with your scary Halloween look, then keep on watching. Also, I want to make sure you guys don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It would mean so much to me for you guys to come and join the beauty club. We like to have fun around here, as you can see, and do things a little bit differently. And so I hope that not only you guys enjoy this, but that it encourages you guys to come and join us and see what else the future has in store for us. Alright, so let's get on to the tutorial now. Alright, now let's get started. So here you'll see that my hair is blown out, and I'll have a whole other video showing you guys how I blow out my hair. I've kind of changed what I did before when I did my protective style. Got some new products and a new routine for you. But anyway, let's focus on this video because it's going to be a long one. So my hair is blown out, and I saw in the clip where Georgina's in the car that it looks like her hair is a little bit straighter / blown out, and it looks like she has 2 French braids and a middle part. And so what I do is I do a middle part, and then I'm going to tie away one side because I'm going to figure out where I want to part my hair so that my braid will end at a certain point. And so I split that one side in half, tie the back part away, and then I start my braiding. And I say French braids instead of cornrows because cornrows are just more known to be a typical black hairstyle. And if she has a brain of the grandma, I would figure that she knows how to do French braids rather than cornrows. So when braiding, you have 3 strands, right? And you can either braid over or under. Now when you're feeding the hair in, the direction in which you braid will determine the look of it. Cornrows is where you're feeding the hair underneath. And so once you feed the hair underneath, on the top it'll show the braid pattern. A French braid is when you feed the hair over, and so then it looks like the hair is going into the braid, and so it's a little bit flatter. I don't want this to be a tutorial on how to French braid versus cornrow, but just in case you guys are wondering and you just needed a little help or a tip, here's one. The first time I did a cornrow, and so I undo that, and after a few more trials I figured out how to do a French braid. And so I'm just going to do a French braid diagonally going from my widow's peak back over to where my ear is at the end of that part. And once it's all braided down, I'm going to use a small little hair tie to tie it up. And I do the same on the right side. So I tried to look over and over again at the car scene to see what the back of her hair looks like. I cannot tell. So basically, the back is a free-for-all. If you just want to do 2 French braids all the way back, feel free to do that. To me, it kind of looked like she had a little mini bun situation in the back, So what I did was I just did a bunch of individual mini braids, and then I just pinned them in the back and crisscrossed them over each other to try to cover up some of the open space caused by the braids and just to make it look a little bit cuter. So there really isn't any rhyme or reason on how to hide and tuck your braids. You just want to make sure to tuck the ends and keep them from being seen. And so next, I have to go ahead and fix this tragic wig. I didn't want to spend a lot of money, so I just purchased a wig off of Amazon. I'll include the link for it down below. I personally don't really recommend buying this one because it was a lot of work to make it work well. But if you have time and if you want to play around with a wig and have it for some other time or some other outfit, whatever, if you do cosplay or if you are going to more than one party, feel free to buy the wig. So this wig is super curly, but I saw in the description of it that you can use hot tools on it. So I thankfully still have my hot tools that I used to have when I had relaxed hair, and I'm going to go ahead and straighten out this wig. I have it on one of the highest heat settings possible. This thing holds heat like crazy, so please be very careful and watch your hands. You can burn yourself just by touching the hair after you straighten it. But anyway, I go in and I take little sections, comb through it, and then straighten it. So do that all around my head, getting out those horrible curls. And then I cut it because it's a little too long and Georgina's hair is a little bit above shoulder length. So because I was going to curl it, I thought that I would be okay getting away with shoulder length. You'll see later that I cut it a little bit more and it gets a little bit shorter. But anyway, once I had that cut, I am going to go in and I razor a few pieces to add a few more layers just to give this more body. And then using my 1-inch curling iron, I go ahead and I curl the hair. Now I'll show you a little demo of what I did because curling it didn't really get the curls to stay. And so what I did instead was I curled the hair on the curling iron, took it in my hand and let it air out a little bit because again it holds heat very well, and then I tuck it under. So you typically pin curls, you kind of tuck it to the side to get that feather effect. This one we want it more where it looks just bumped at the ends. So you're going to tuck it under, and once you get it tucked under pretty well and wrapped around your 2 fingers, you're going to use hairpins or duck clips or whatever you have to pin the hair. And you'll do this while the hair is still semi-hot warm, and you'll leave it there until the hair cools down. And once the hair cools down, you'll get what I have here. And so this was perfect for me because the hair looked bumped and it looked a little bit bigger than what it was when it was straight, but it's not overly curly. And so once I'm done with the wig, I'm going to go ahead and take it off, and now we're going to get into the makeup. Also, in messing with my wig, I saw that my edges started to peep out. So what I did was I grabbed some edge control and I'm going to brush my edges down, and then I'm going to wrap it with a scarf. And this will kind of be like my line of demarcation, and I'll make sure to not go past my scarf because if I do go past that line with the liquid latex, it'll get stuck on my hair and it'll just be a hot mess, and we don't have time for that. So to do this, you will need some liquid latex. And so the liquid latex that I'm using right here is just some monster liquid latex I got from Amazon. So I put the latex on, and then I start adding thin layers of tissue. And I'm using Kleenex. And the thing about Kleenex that I like is that it's 2-ply, and so you can separate it and you get really thin strips of tissue. And between the latex and the tissue, it'll look like skin once you put all the colors on it and kind of play with it a bit. And so to replicate the scar, it's good to look at a few reference pictures, to look at Georgina in the car and to kind of do some screen grabs if you can. That's what I did. And so she has the line going across her forehead. And as you can see, I have a 3 head, not a 4 head. So this was a little hard to do, but if you have a bigger forehead than me, this should be way easier. So I went across my forehead in a curved line to kind of replicate my hairline, but not exactly. I also wasn't very careful in doing this because if you watch the movie, you will see that a lot of the characters, when they show you their scars, it looks kind of haphazard. It doesn't look like it's well done, and it doesn't look like it's neat. It looks very kind of like jagged and just horribly like scarred. So you don't have to be professional to do this. And so what you can do is you put down the latex, add the tissue, and then repeat that and play with a mixture of tissue and latex. For laying down the liquid latex, it's best to use a disposable sponge that you don't really need or you won't ever use again, except for cases like this. And so the nice thing about this too is that it dries fairly quickly, and so you won't have to worry about it being too goopy. And also I suggest playing around with the tissue once it's laid on your head and kind of bunch it up in different areas, scrunch it a little bit, move it around, because once you put in all the colors and everything, as you'll see later, it makes it look way more realistic. And then as you'll see, I take some smaller pieces of tissue, ball them up between my fingers, lay down some latex, and put them in vertically. And that way I'm replicating what will be the raised areas where the stitches will be. And so after I do that a few times, I put on one more layer of tissue, put on the latex to kind of get around the area and lay it flat, and then we're all done. And we can go on to the face makeup. So for Georgina, her face makeup is super simple. She doesn't wear any contour, she doesn't wear any highlighter. If anything, she just has a little bit of blush, a nice little brown mauve pink lip, and then I also added eyeliner, as you'll see later, to my eyes to kind of make it a little bit more open and to kind of make my lashes look a little bit thicker without putting on fake lashes. And also she has very nice and neat eyebrows. And so for the face makeup, Georgina's skin looks very even and also it's just very natural looking. So of course your girl had to use her Fenty Beauty foundation. If you don't want to use your Fenty Beauty foundation or don't want to use an expensive one, just get a cheap one that matches your skin and get some powder to make it look like it's not so dewy. Her face isn't really dewy, but it's also not really matte. It's a good blend between. So I put on the foundation and I'm using the Real Technique sponge, and I'm also going over the area where I have the latex and the tissue paper. And this is just the first layer of color, and as you can see, it is lighter than my skin, and so I'm going to go back over it with a dark brown color from my Tartlette palette. I believe this is Activist. And so yeah, I'm going to take Activist and go over that area and just make it a little bit darker so that it matches. And so after that, I'm going to fill in my eyebrows and I'm going to deepen my crease a little bit. Because even though we both have a lot of eyelid space, I feel like her crease is a little bit deeper. And also, I'm currently growing out my brows, so I'm going to take a concealer that is as close to my skin shade as possible, and I'm going to cover that up because, again, her eyebrows are super clean. And once I have that all situated, I'm going to go back to the scar, and I'm going to take this dark brown liner, and I'm going to begin the outlines for where the scar and the stitches will be. And so I take this first across the tissue and the latex. And what I do next is something you don't have to do, but if you do this, be very careful. I'm taking my mini eyebrow razor and I'm going to go over that brown line and press in so that it creates little divots in the tissue and latex. So I'm not going back and forth, I'm literally just pressing in ever so slightly just to go into the tissue and latex because we don't want to actually cut ourselves by mistake. So again, please be careful, but this is what I do in order to create a little bit of depth inside with the tissue. Once that's done, I'm going to take a little bit of Rebel and Activist and Leader, and I'm going to go in and color the scar. Basically, any matte reddish brown color, dark brown color, or light brown color will work perfectly for this. Just make sure whatever eyeshadow or powder you use is matte. So I'm going in and I'm focusing the darker colors closer to the areas that are raised. And so once I do that, because I didn't really have any body paints with me, I'm just going to use my matte liquid lipsticks. And I'm going to mix together a bright red color that I have, a deeper red color, and a dark purple color. And using the back of my hand like a paint palette, I'm going to go ahead and include those colors onto the scar, and I'm also going to put it on the sides of my face on my left side because after the car accident, Georgina had some bruising by her temple and a little bit by her cheek, and I wanted this to kind of be a mixture of her after the car accident as well as what she looked like when Chris first met her. And again, this is more of a free-for-all. There wasn't really any method to my matteness. I just wanted to make sure that it looked as realistic as possible. And lastly, to add the last bit of depth that this needed, because I still felt like it didn't pop, I went in with my felt tip black eyeliner. And first what I did is I did the straight lines going down to mimic the stitches. And after looking at that a little bit, I decided to do a line across. And I feel like this really sealed the deal in making this look way more realistic than what it looked like before. Once I get that all to my liking, I'm going to go ahead and put on my eyeliner, and I make sure to keep my eyeliner as close to my lash line as possible, and I'm also going to put on some mascara. Now, Georgina's eyes always look a little bit wet, so I added some of my Fenty Beauty highlighter across the inner corners and the lower lash line. I believed I used Ginger Binge, whichever one is not the most sparkly. And you can use whatever color is close to your skin tone as long as it's more iridescent than glittery. And so I put on that across my lower lash line, and afterwards in the very corner of my eyes, the outer corners, I'm going to put in a tiny little bit of black in order to kind of create a little V in my outer corners, and that will open my eyes a little bit more as well as frame the outer corners. And this looks a little bit closer to how Georgina's eyes look. Once that's all done, I'm going to add some lipstick, and so first I added a little bit of a more nude kind of lipstick, and then on top of it I added a dark mauve-y pink color over it, and the finishing touches to my scars and everything, and now you have Georgina. That is it. Feel free to be fascinated by your beautiful new face and cover up that ugly scar, because no one wants to see that. And continue to look at people and just say no while crying on demand. I mean, I can't cry on demand, so this is fake tears, but still. Do whatever you need to do in order to get people to feel like they're back in the second place and unable to escape. And I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial. I had so much fun. This is great. I really didn't know how it was going to turn out, and it turned out wonderfully. But please, if you have any questions, leave a comment down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Much love. Bye.